I see we have a couple additional people who have joined us. Thank you all for being with us. Again, we're going to really try to have some discussion. Got questions throughout the conversation today. Feel free to use that chat. Also, we'll ask you to unmute to talk as well. But I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Today, we're talking about exploring the benefits of win-win nonprofit and corporate partnerships. So, show of hands, how many of us here today want to increase our corporate supporters or grow our business gifts program? I'm guessing you wouldn't have shown up if that wasn't of interest to you, right? We are constantly having people ask, hey, what can we do to expand this? Let's grow our corporate partnerships. Let's grow our supporters. Let's get our business giving team engaged more. So hopefully today you can have some tools to go back and go forth and have 2024 be your year. But where do we start, right? Where do you even begin? There are so many intricacies with a corporate giving program. We got to remember that in relational fundraising, which is what we always want to do, we talk a lot about focusing on being donor-centric, but that can feel sometimes like a moving target when we're dealing with an organization, right? Because we need to talk to both the individual and make sure we're appealing to the organization's values, right? Because we've got decision makers that are individuals and have, no matter what, they're going to have personal preferences and opinions on the organizations they align with. And then you also have corporate policies and values and missions and all of those things. So we have to take a look at both. Today, we really want to focus on what's important to the organization, because I think if you start with the organization and how the corporation can benefit from aligning with your nonprofit, then you can tailor your approach and your message accordingly to connect with the individuals who can actually influence those decisions. But I think it's important that we acknowledge that both exist. But again, let's start with benefits to a corporation in aligning with your nonprofit. So next slide, please, Trish. One of the things that is very, very important is that enhanced corporate social responsibility. We know that organizations looking to align with our missions are going to show a demonstrated commitment to societal issues, and that is going to resonate positively with their consumers, their investors, their employees, right? With all the people who are aligned with their organization or support their brand. So for us, we know that as the nonprofit, that gives us a broader platform for our causes, potentially helps us to increase funding, as companies are often willing to invest in initiatives that they believe enhance their CSR profile, right? Corporate social responsibility. So I think it's important for us to take a look at what are we doing? How do we ensure that our organization's mission or our cause that we're raising funds for is going to appeal to a corporation looking to be a partner with us? So what is it that we're doing? What is it that you all could be doing to make sure that you're putting that best foot forward to the corporations? And then on the other side of that, how do we identify what's important to them, right? So how do we find that where we can close that gap? So one, to get a little discussion going here, what is it that we're doing to make sure that we're getting in front of those people? And then how are we doing our homework and our research to know what is important to organizations? Does anyone have some thoughts on that? Please feel free to go ahead and raise your hand, unmute yourself, or drop a comment in the chat box. Promise I'm not going to hurt anyone. I'll start with just is anybody doing some research to find out? Let's say hopefully you've identified a list of organizations that might be aligning with your values as an organization. Usually there's some information that we can look on their websites, right? Has anyone started looking at the websites of the organizations that you're looking? Let's see, we've got a couple comments. Thank you. Let me pull this up. Using our board and development committee members to ID and make connections. Thank you. Yes, like that is important, right? We know people who have relationships with those influencers, those decision makers, those people who are leadership of the organizations. And let's just ask them, right? What is important to your organization when you're considering a charitable gift? What is important beyond a transactional gift? What is important if we're looking at like a multi-year relationship with you, right? Asking that question is important. Trish Creech, we're doing executive roundtables with businesses and providers. Fabulous, right? Get to know them. Look, y'all are focused on the relationship. That's key, right? We also do a roundtable quarterly with business leaders. Thank you, Andrea. Yes. So I think it's important to have that two-way dialogue, right? How else do we do research? I mentioned a website. Any other thoughts on how you can do some research about what's important to the businesses that you are looking to get involved with? How about looking at other nonprofits that they support? If you see what they're giving to, that's going to show you a lot about their values as it relates to aligning with a cause, right? Any other comments? The next benefit that we're going to talk about is very similar to this one. So unless anyone has additional comments, questions, thoughts, I'm going to actually move right on into that next slide.
Yeah, I would say I've only been in nonprofits for about a year, but really just noticing, because these corporate companies, they always announce it, they always, get the word out. I'm just noticing those a lot more, and then they usually, sometimes they'll have a contact, and I'll try to reach out to that person, and just even if we'll end up, being supported by them, I'm still learning about that process too.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's important to learn and talk with them, right? A lot of people are like, "Oh, we just don't have enough business gifts," and throw their hands up. But how do we know what's important if we don't have a conversation? Hey, I see your hand up.
Sure. I'm here really to learn because we've been stymied about putting together a business council. I represent family physicians, and for our industry partners that are pharma focused, we have in some of our general conversations about setting up some business executive roundtable or industry supporter council, we immediately get blocked due to the sunshine rules that the pharmacy industry is leery and or forbidden to be, what we have been told, to be on a roundtable or any type of council or board or group where physicians also serve on the group, which would potentially give some type of unfair potential, at least the look of influencing. So I'm here to learn because I appreciate your question, Marty, but we haven't been able to crack the code. So interested in, as an example, the round table quarterly with business leaders. Andrea, does that include your pharmaceutical friends, if that's the world that you're in? And if so, is that an issue? So not a lot to say, just really here to listen and learn.
Yeah, let me take that, if I may. The pharmaceutical companies, it's always been tricky in terms of their giving to healthcare. In some cases, there are some pharmaceutical companies that just don't give. An example, for many years, Eli Lilly did not give to healthcare, just to avoid any kinds of conflicts, undue influence, whatever it may be, and said, no, we only give to education. So it is tricky. I think in the cases where we've been able to get any involvement proactively from them is almost on an informal one-on-one basis, where we're able to communicate with them directly, where we're able to talk to them about the project itself, and that it's not physician benefit, it's community benefit, and utilize them to help open individual doors, but almost on a one-on-one basis, because we have not seen where we see a lot of involvement from pharmaceutical companies kind of formally or on an interactive basis in roundtables, even on our development councils, on our foundations. They tend to stay very arm's length. but from time to time, we can get some involvement from those individual executives to help us with others, open some doors in that regard, because it is difficult, it is tricky, and we've not seen a lot of involvement on a formalized basis as far as attending or being part of or a member of that type of a healthcare based organization. So I'm not surprised that it's a challenge, and we have to, and in our efforts as far as business representation, we probably are more focused on other types of businesses where they do want to have the association with you. But the pharmaceutical companies on a formalized or public kind of a basis are going to be very, very careful.
I just wanted to say that we hospice can be kind of tricky too with some of that, but we are taking a look at our vendors um, because they already, they supply us with a lot of goods, but also we look at the customer base that the corporation serves. And if there's a common interest there, if they serve the same age group of people or demographic, then they might want to, become involved, sponsor something or whatnot with us.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy. You're jumping really great into, on this slide, what this means for us, right? I think corporate partners visibility and aligning with our campaigns, right? If the people who see what we're doing are also their customers, that's super important. I think that's one of the reasons why when you're building, a business gifts or a corporate gifts team, those people who do a lot of business to business can help you, see the same customer base and the same people. So that's fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. Like I said, this is sort of a related slide, that brand enhancement and public perception. So there's that corporate social responsibility, but then there's also like your brand, right? Who do you want to be associated with, and who may want to be associated with you, more importantly, for, to have that brand alignment, right? So we can leverage that desire for positive brand association by offering that visibility. And it really helps us work to get multi-year commitments to deepen those relationships and have a more meaningful interaction, right? If you hop onto that next slide, please, Trish. When we can have that strategic alignment and shared values, it really is where that sweet spot of a win-win comes in, right? They're able to support a cause that aligns with their brand, and you're able to get a supporter that just makes sense, that you're partnering. So if we take that time to understand their goals, their mission, their values, and then we highlight how our organization can strengthen that alignment, that's when the magic happens, right? So showing how supporting your organization also supports their objectives is a huge win. And as I was preparing for this part, I did a little research and was like, okay, let's think of like big companies that we know of. And are there anyone that you know of, those highly public corporate partnerships, any that just come to mind?
Pfizer.
Pfizer,
Pfizer sponsors a lot
yeah.
of things.
Yes, right. Like and there's a reason you see that, right? As I was doing a little research, Starbucks. Okay, sorry, my kids love Starbucks. They always want to go to Starbucks. I'm not a huge Starbucks fan, but you know what? Especially in the holidays, it's kind of fun, right? Big visible organization. One of the things I found that I thought was fascinating is they had, for International Women's Day, they had set a goal to support coffee, tea, and cocoa growing communities that impacted women. Okay, pretty sure I didn't read it anywhere, but pretty sure women is probably their target market, right? And so they knew that was a great thing to align with. They were doing something that totally connected to their organization, but they were doing a lot of good for the world as well. And I thought that was a really cool example of a very public corporate partnership that they had done to align their values and make a difference in the people who were going to be purchasing their products' lives, right? And who would find that important. Pfizer, great example. Any other ones that you see out publicly a lot that you can think of, either the nonprofit and or the corporation that you're like, yeah, they do a lot out in the community, and we see that a lot. And it just sort of makes sense when you stop and think about it. Anyone else? Any good examples that you can think of? Walmart. Who do you see Walmart aligning with, Trish? Anyone you can think of?
Our local Walmart does a lot of the local nonprofits in our community. So our animal shelter, our domestic violence. We have yet to get there, but our nonprofit hopefully will be there soon. But they do a lot locally.
And you tapped into something really important. And I'm really glad you mentioned that local connection for those big brands can be really, really important. So a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm never going to be able to touch Walmart. Like, I'm a small community local nonprofit. Why would I ever go talk to Walmart? They're just like a big corporate entity and they're never going to get involved. You notice when those big organizations do get involved locally, and you figure out who to connect with and how to figure that out. Some big organizations want to support nationwide causes, but some want to support, in the communities where they're located. So there's that piece, but then there's also the small businesses, right? And figuring out what's important to them, and they want to have that support close to home. So I think there's a lot of considerations, but it's really great to consider all angles. Andrea, they also support local children's hospitals. That's awesome. Yeah. And if you know that, if that's your market, figuring out how to tap into that is important. Anyone that you have been, I know Faye, you shared you were trying to get, some of the pharmaceutical companies involved with your mission and what's going on. Anyone else that you can think of? It doesn't have to be a big brand. It can be a small local business that you're just like, gosh, this is who we want to get to be a part of giving and be a part of our corporate partnership program. Anyone that you think that you want to sort of talk through what you're working on? Any good prospects that you all are thinking about, who you think, gosh, it just makes sense and we've been unsuccessful yet, or we've been successful in getting them involved? No one? Anyone have a top prospect they want to share? Just like who it is and what you're looking at? No? Okay. Well, I think that you've thrown a lot of great ideas out, and I'm going to hand it over to Jim for the next couple of benefits we're going to talk through.
Great. Thanks, Marty. I appreciate that. One of the things that any business is going to consider when they're considering making a gift is the reaction of their employees. And it can be, kind of a double-edged sword depending on what that looks like. Some employees may think, well, we're getting less of an increase this year because the boss gave away that big gift to whatever charity. And so they have to think about the impact of whatever they're supporting on their employees, on their employee group. One of the ways to think about that is, number one, the project that's being supported and in what way that may benefit the employees. And number two, kind of the ongoing opportunity for recognition and what that recognition looks like relative to employee visibility becomes important. A few years back, working with a hospital in Oregon, and had a fairly major campaign for them at $4 million to expand, enhance emergency department and their physical therapy. Went to one of the major timber and lumber companies in Oregon for $1 million gift toward that $4 million project. And they said, we've never given away a gift that big, but we'll certainly listen to it. He said, well, can we, our board would consider it. We decided to take a chance. Can we come and present to your board? And they said, sure. One of the things that we did when we went and talked to them was presented to them the opportunity for a challenge grant, in that at certain thresholds, that $1 million could be distributed, in their case, to $250,000 at a time, every time that we hit a $750,000 level of other fundraising, so that they would get continual employee visibility. This company dominated the community in terms of employment. And so it was less about necessarily media as it was about having their employees understand that in their case, the emergency department and the physical therapy department, which in the timber business was key, because there were always on the job accidents, always on the job injuries, that the employees could take advantage of these improved services. And so as a result, they designed their recognition to get that continual recognition throughout the campaign. They made the initial commitment, but every time that there was a $250,000 disbursement, they wanted another press release. And so we did that. Obviously, that was easy to do, and they were happy about it. In addition to that, we were able to get several of their top executives to make significant gifts as well. So the recognition, the project itself is key as far as the employees are concerned, as far as justification of that gift, and that becomes important. So something to think about when you're talking to businesses is how the project may directly impact the employees themselves and how they can best publicize and talk about that. Going on to the next slide, I think the other thing is as we talk to businesses, the importance of being flexible. Not unusual that for some period of time, a business may be a sponsor of an event, a fundraising event, and that's what they do. They're used to it. They participate in that, and that's great. We come along, we're also trying to secure significant direct gifts from that business. And they say, well, we're already supporting you. And we say, well, we understand and appreciate that. And hopefully you get the great visibility from your sponsorship. But what we like to do, if we at all possible can do this, is again, going back to the project that we're trying, or a campaign, and sometimes looking at a blended gift between corporate sponsorships for an event and a campaign gift, and say, we don't necessarily want to have to, every time we see you, every year or 6 months, be coming in here asking for dollars. What we'd like to have you consider is a total gift over the next 3 years of X, and that will include your corporate sponsorship. It will include a gift to the campaign. You'll be recognized in both areas, both as a corporate sponsor and also within our campaign donors. And that way, anytime we see you over the course of the 3 years, it'll be to say thank you, or see you at the event, or see you at recognition events, and do it in that way. And talk about that kind of a blended gift. Not all corporations will do that, but we are seeing fewer and fewer corporate sponsorships of events, just because sometimes they have a hard time justifying, whether to the public or to their own board or employees, why they make a gift or a sponsorship and 8 people may go and sit at a table in an event, or 4 people may get to go play golf, but it doesn't really have great impact as far as the rest of the employees are concerned. And so we're seeing a shift as it is, but some corporations still want to be part of that event. That's fine. And ask for that blended gift. Ask for the total. Tell them everything that will be included, and then it's a 3-year commitment if done. Now, some businesses don't pledge out. They review it every year, and we understand that they have an annual budget they look at. But some will make that type of a commitment. The other thing to think about in terms of flexibility is that businesses have the option of giving from not just a contributions budget, but from their marketing budget. And sometimes the dollars that are represented by their marketing budget are more flexible in terms of what they can do. Sometimes they say, well, we've got a pool of funds for for contributions, and that's been used up for the year, or we've only got this much, or here's our policy on that. But when it comes down to marketing dollars and the marketing budget, they may have more flexibility. So often we have the opportunity to suggest that to them and let them know that that there is marketing benefit to their support of our organization. They're going to be known as a good corporate citizen. They're going to be associated with the project. They may be associated with the event sponsorship itself, and really talk about kind of the list of things that they're going to get out of that. Not that we're necessarily in the business of selling recognition, but we do want to have that kind of front of mind for the businesses, because they're super conscious of that as far as that's concerned. So that becomes important. The flexibility not only on sponsorships and outright gifts, but also flexibility on where their budget may be allocated out of either marketing or contributions. Next slide, please. This is, the key, I think, overall, is that we have to think about our business donors differently in terms of how they can justify this gift. They may, as individuals, want to support your project and think, boy, that's a great project and we'd like to do that. And they may be hesitant, or they may ask you the hard questions because they know they're going to get hard questions from employees and shareholders and their board and executive leadership and so forth. So there are some things to think about when you go into, and sometimes we're not always thinking about them when we go in and talk to a business about how they may need to justify that gift. Worked with a hospital in Florida, and a pretty good sized institution, and they in their community was one of the tech companies. And we were going to that tech company for $250,000 gift. Set up the appointment between the hospital CEO and the board chairman with the corporation's CEO and CFO. And so we go in and sit down, and they say, before you start, we know why you're here. And before you get into your presentation, we've got a presentation to make to you. And immediately we thought, oh boy, what's this going to be like? And they proceeded to have a presentation complete with slides and so forth on the increases in their healthcare costs over the past 3 to 5 years. They called attention to the fact that the hospital is one of the highest cost hospitals in the state of Florida, and they were going to have a difficult time. They said, we know you're here to ask us for money, but we're going to have a difficult time justifying a gift to our board and to our employees, for that matter, with our cost situation and with your cost situation. Well, that obviously didn't go the way we wanted it to go, but fortunately, the CEO of the hospital was there and said, well, talked about the fact that the project that we're looking to have them support was going to, and we have to be careful not say, reduce costs, but help contain costs, and talk about what that project looked like and how that was going to have an impact. But additionally, was able to have a conversation with the CEO of the corporation about educational programs for their employees and things that may help some of their costs. So went through that process, did implement some of the programs and education and training for their employees in different ways, did demonstrate over time that the project was able to show some data the project was going to help contain costs. And a year later went back and did get the gift. But we had to jump through some pretty good hoops with them to be able to get that gift. So you need to be prepared going into it of the fact that they're anticipating either pushback or hard questions from their own constituency when we ask them for a gift. We need to be able to anticipate those hard questions that they're going to share with us. If we do that, and in this particular case, they became a very consistent long-term donor. We were able to give them tons of recognition. They appreciated that. They got some naming opportunities with some of their gifts. And it was really a good long-term partnership, but it started out a little bit rough because of their concern about costs and justifying the gift to their own people, their employees, their board, and so forth. So one of the things we have to think about with our corporate prospects is how this has an impact to them and how they can justify realistically to their own folks. So, and with that, on to our next slide, and happy to take any additional questions or thoughts about business and corporate giving, any questions or any comments or experiences that anybody would like to share. Well, with that,
I have a question real quick.
yes, of course.
So we have a corporate partner that is very connected and very generous to the hospital. So the approach has been is to approach the upper management, this individual who is the CEO, for an individual gift. And maybe this isn't the platform to present this, but his approach is that I'm already giving on behalf of my corporation, but we really want to also get them as an individual donor, and any best practices or ways to because he gets it, because he's very committed as he is sharing gifts through his business, but we just can't seem to crack the individual giving for them.
We see that not infrequently, and sometimes it takes time. Often we get the gift from the business, and because they want that visibility, they think that's important, and sends the message, and good corporate citizen and so forth. But after a period of time of establishing that relationship, and one of the things that we at least talk about is the fact that their gift as an individual will influence other individuals. Not only will their gift as a corporation affect other businesses. And we'd like to be able to have you join us with our $10,000 giving club or whatever it may be, and you being there will make a difference. When it's a closely held corporation, sometimes you get one or the other. You have a little easier time when it's a bigger business, and it's a little bit of a separate situation where somebody like a bank manager, a bank president, doesn't necessarily own the entire bank, but has an opportunity to be recognized and be part of that social circle and involvement. So I would relate it back to recognition, and relate it back to the fact that their individual gift will influence other individuals and really help us out. So I relate it back to the recognition. But generally, it takes a little bit of time. We might usually have one or the other for some period of time, and then finally kind of crack the nut on the other end and get the second gift.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jim.
Trish, I would just echo, and then Andrew, I think you have something to say. I would just also say, anytime you have someone on your volunteer team who is walking the walk and doing both, that would be the person that you would want to talk to them. And if you don't have someone on your team who is able to and doing both, I would encourage that, because I think that is way more powerful than you saying, hey, but we need more support. Like it's hey, I'm doing this. I also, my business, I've been able to get a corporate gift, and I'm personally doing this, and here's why I chose to do that, and you should do it too. That obviously is pretty powerful.
Sounds great. Thanks, Marty.
Yeah. Andrea.
Yes, I just had a quick question. I've been sort of courting a corporate partner. We offered to do sort of a lunch and learn for their employees. So we did one, it went well. They asked us to come back a few months later and do another. After the second one, I did make an ask and got a very, very meager gift. I won't say it was much smaller than they had the capacity to give. And so they want us to come back and do another lunch and learn, which takes a good bit of time putting together. I guess my question is, do I continue fostering this, or at what point do I kind of bless and release? Because I don't know that while they have the capacity to do more, I don't know that I'm not sure if it's as good a fit for us as, I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about this one.
When in doubt, I'd stay with them for a period of time. I mean, there's again, relating it back to, what other businesses may be doing in terms of what you're doing for recognition for them, but I'd stay with it.
Okay.
Generally, when somebody starts out giving to an organization, as long as we stay in good contact, and it sounds like you're maintaining a good relationship with your lunch and learns, the opportunity to grow that gift exists and generally does go up over time. It does take some patience, and I know it's frustrating when you think that's all you're doing, but sometimes it's a patient persistence kind of a thing, and showing that you can do that. I recognize it's time and effort to put that together, but I'd stay with it for some period of time before it becomes very obvious to you that they're never going to do anything more than that. So
Okay. Thank you.
I'd hang in there. You're doing the right thing.
Thank you.
It's hard to wait. I know.
Yeah, it's such a reminder of, how we always try to say we want to, recognize and thank all of our supporters, whether it's $50 or $50 million, but you also know that you only have so much time. So it's, sometimes it is that $50 gift that's testing you for the future for the $1 million gift, and you just never know. So stay with it when you can, and obviously have to reassess as time goes on. But very, very good dialogue. Any other questions, comments for the good of the order?